Do you not want that on you? Why'd you just throw that off?
Wait for the real one.
From winning one of the bloodiest fights in recent UFC history to engineering some seriously scathing trash talk, this is why fighters are really afraid of Justin Gaethje, and not just in the ring. First off, Gaethje has managed to make a name for himself as a man without fear. His career as a UFC lightweight got off to its real start after a childhood spent wrestling the neighborhood kids, and it seems he was so formidable even as a wee one that his parents allowed Gaethje to pursue wrestling in high school. He got into the University of Northern Colorado on a sports scholarship, and here's where things got real for Justin. According to him, he'd just pick people up and then slam them down, which earned him the nickname The Highlight, since all he was doing was waiting for his chance to do his signature slam dunk, not with a ball, but with a human body. At the time, he didn't have any formal training either, but the man who's now his trainer said he was always destined for UFC greatness. Why? Well, because this up-and-coming lightweight wasn't just fearless, he had a lot of bravado. And what's a legendary fighter without Gaethje's so-called walk of a champion? It wasn't hard for him to make a quick name for himself out in the official wrestling world either. Gaethje's first ever fight for UFC was against fellow up-and-comer Michael Johnson, and by the time round 2 rolled around, the newly minted wrestler had thrown all 5 feet 11 inches and 155 pounds of himself into winning. He got off to a golden start in his career with a beautiful TKO, a total knockout, in 2 punches. And even when it comes to his losses, there aren't many of those. He's got a win rate of 75%, and he's quite the legendary TKOer. He manages to do a whole lot of damage before going down. Dustin Poirier has turned out to be quite the sizable rival for Justin after taking him down. That match must have been an absolutely shattering blow to Gaethje, but Poirier didn't walk away unscathed either. The man took insane amounts of damage to his leg because of his opponent's relentless determination to knock him down. And by the end of the match, the victory seemed pretty hollow for Poirier. Even if he got to talk the tough talk of being the UFC winner, both men were covered in blood and bruises, absolutely beaten to pulps, and it is definitely hard to tell which one was the real winner. As for his other fights, most of which have been victories, Justin's known for being quick and dirty. He doesn't believe in dilly-dallying or waiting for the opponent to tire themselves out first. No, Gaethje's maintained his well-loved college technique, the highlight. He just goes in and body slams the other man repeatedly, which is often necessary since his opponents aren't slouches either, and he's not afraid of getting hurt in the process too. Now, this may not come as a surprise, but no UFC fighter can afford to be afraid of catching a couple of gushing wounds or grisly bruises. And if anything, they wear these as badges of honor. But when this guy fights, it's like he's absolutely immune to the other guys slamming and ramming. Hell, he's so notorious for his relentlessness in the ring, he's become the rival of legendary trash talk and fighter extraordinaire Conor McGregor without once encountering him face-to-face in the octagon. Now, if that doesn't prove Justin's earned himself some serious street cred, I don't know what does. You're bothering Conor McGregor and you haven't even twitched a finger at the man. And it's definitely not an easy feat to accomplish, getting on McGregor's nerves so quick and without even becoming an opponent. McGregor believes in showing everyone, and I mean everyone, who's boss by telling them in the most indelicate language that he does not care what they think. They all wish they were him. They're all beneath him. Blah blah. But he reserves a special sort of fiery grudge for young upstart Justin, and Gaethje isn't one to hold back on the trash talk either. All the ruthlessness in the ring aside, this macho man is an absolutely merciless trash talker. Why? Because he knows he can back his big words up with big punches. This is the guy who's enraged the ferocious McGregor without so much as coming near him after all. After absolutely bludgeoning the famous Tony Ferguson, who's known for never backing down, Gaethje was named by commentator Joe Rogan as the most violent man in the sport.
Justin Gaethje's a monster. Justin Gaethje is a monster. He's a monster. He's a terrifying individual. He is, in a sport that's violent sport, he stands out as the most violent.
And this is high praise coming from a guy who doesn't believe in puffing up fighters' egos with needless compliments. In the post-interview stage, when asked what he intended to do with his upcoming opponent, Khabib Nurmagomedov, he said he wanted the man to see blood. He wholeheartedly agreed that Nurmagomedov really is crazy. He's known for it, being a guy who got his start wrestling bears. You heard that right, bears in his native Chechnya. But Gaethje did not let that shake him at all. Nope. If anything, it was as if he was trying to provoke even more insanity out of Nurmagomedov. He said Khabib hadn't seen nearly as much blood as him, and that if Khabib's crazy, Justin's crazier. Oof! tough words coming from a guy who grew up in the calm of the American Midwest compared to someone who grew up in a war-torn land where he had to fight to survive. That just goes to show the kind of guy Gaethje is. He's not afraid of anyone, and he knows he can handle whatever firestorms he provokes. And boy, was it a firestorm? Khabib did end up winning, but Justin didn't go down without a fight during one of these rare losses of his career. If anything, he fought harder than ever, and in the post-interview stage, Khabib said he lived up to the trash talk. He wasn't just spewing nonsense, he really did give Khabib a hell of a fight. And he gave Tony Ferguson a hell of a trash talk in days preceding their match. In fact, he came up with some statements that really amazed everyone tuning into the interview. He actually invited Ferguson to break his nose. "You heard that right," Gaethje said. "Go for it, break my nose." He said he'd been waiting for someone to break his nose right for a long time, saying he didn't particularly like his current one, and that it'd be great if someone came and fixed it for him. The background behind that? Well, if Ferguson made good on this little invitation of Gaethje's and really did break his nose, he would get a free rhinoplasty out of the deal. Since the UFC ensures all fighters and any damages sustained, any surgeries necessary, are all covered by the company's fund. This invitation for a rhinoplasty has been one of the weirdest instances of trash talk, and it definitely made Justin come off as not just unbalanced, like any good fighter should be, but also the kind of crazy that goes in deep with the details. He's crazy in the ring and crazy in the head, and that's why fans go wild for the guy. It's a surprise Gaethje hasn't hit that specific UFC crazy guy landmark since he hasn't had an out-of-ring altercation yet. But that's because behind that ruthless exterior hides the kind of guy who's actually quite good-hearted when he wants to be. When he tapped out in his 2020 fight against Khabib, he actually ended up congratulating and consoling the fighter he injured, telling Khabib he made his dad proud, defeating such an unhinged opponent. And this is what eventually ended up winning Khabib's respect for him. He graduated from the University of Northern Colorado with a degree in human services, and at the moment, his personal brand is dedicated to helping at-risk and underprivileged youth cultivate their love for fighting. So it seems Justin Gaethje really is a scary guy. He fears nothing. There's nothing he won't do to prove he walks the walk and talks the talk. But he's got his good sides, he's got a heart, and he seems like a great, if somewhat terrifying, human being. But then again, charity work and man-to-man consolation aside, he definitely is not the kind of person you want on your bad side. To this day, he hasn't backed down off Conor McGregor either, and all signs point to saying he won't ever do that. Why? Because he is Justin Gaethje, and Bravado is his middle name. Fans are quivering with anticipation to see his next fight in the lightweight finals against Rafael Fiziev, who definitely hasn't been spared the famous Gaethje trash talk either. Let's see what this new fearsome opponent brings for our favorite fighter with no fear. So, from being the champ of one of the most insanely violent UFC matches ever, to engineering the kind of trash talk other guys would pay money to come up with, this is why everyone is really afraid of Justin Gaethje.